Hi there, welcome to Roll Again. I'm Steve, and today we've got kind of a special treat. I was searching through Craigslist, as I often do, for furniture that I can refurbish, which is one of my hobbies, but also I'm always looking to see if there's anything that can be used for role-playing games, Dungeons & Dragons 5e, things like that. And yesterday I came across a post that was listing Super Dungeon Explorer games. Now, I know that a lot of times you can pick up some cheap bulk minis that come in some of these RPG type games. So I did a quick check on the internet just to look up Super Dungeon Explorer. I have to be honest, I wasn't real familiar with it. After a quick look on the internet, I did see it was a game that came out about 5 or 6 years ago. It was funded by Kickstarter originally, and then it's had some other Kickstarter expansion pieces that came into it. I contacted the person on Craigslist who was looking to get rid of it. It was about an hour away from my house. And he was getting rid of 3 boxes of this. He had the original Super Dungeon Explorer, which we're going to take a look at today. He then had the Super Dungeon Explorer Forgotten King edition, as well as the Super Dungeon Explorer Forgotten King Kickstarter Stretch Goals box. So he has 3 boxes. I don't really know what's in them. We're going to open them for the first time here and unbox them. But I don't really have much interest in playing the game. I've looked it up a little bit. I know there's kind of some complex rules to it. But really what I'm interested in is the minis. But we'll see what's involved in the actual box and what we might be able to use for tabletop role-playing, especially in my Dungeons & Dragons 5e campaigns, and see if it was kind of worth it. I do know that I did pay probably a quarter of what I would for all 3 of these boxes brand new, and so it was a really good deal, and we'll see how many minis we get out of it. I'm going to do 3 videos because I think each box will probably take up the time we need for each video. So I'll do today the Super Dungeon Explorer box, so this is part 1 of the unboxing, and then I'll do part 2 with the Forgotten Kings, and then part 3 with the Kickstarter Stretch Goal box, and we'll see what we got. So alright, the first thing we have here is basically looks like the rule book. It's kind of glossy. It's got some nice pictures in here. They kind of have a little bit of like an anime kind of cartoonish style to them, at least in the book they have here. Here we have a number of cardboard tokens, some potion tokens, some skull tokens, some sword tokens. There's a number of different things here, some heart tokens. You know, these I want to set aside because these might still be useful. You could use these, I could see, in a lot of different ways during a Dungeons & Dragons game for things like, you know, if you have somebody who's dead or having to do death saves, you can put a little skull by them. You can utilize the potion ones maybe, or the heart ones. So there may be a number of little things I could still do with these. We'll set them aside and see if they could be useful later. A couple of instructions. It looks like some of the minis might need to be put together. Up here it looks like the board game pieces, but what I will say is they have, it looks like there's a number of dungeon tiles that are here. Probably, I would say at least half a dozen, probably 6 different dungeon tiles. So these might be able to utilize. It looks like the squares are 1 inch, which would work with Dungeons & Dragons. So these might be good to utilize just on the table for some dungeon tile pieces. They're pretty heavy stock cardboard, so those could be utilized. We have dice. They're all D6s. Doesn't look like something I might use in my playing because they're all, it's game specific. They all have a couple, like 1 or 2 or 3 stars on them, or hearts, or little potions. Not anything that you could probably utilize in dice rolls in Dungeons & Dragons, but it's always neat to have more dice, so that's not too bad. They also have a number of cards in here, and the art on the cards is actually pretty cool. I think some of them belong to the minis. They have little pieces of art with explanations about the mini, attack stats, armor stats, will, dexterity stats. So probably little pieces that go with the game, but that's kind of neat to have. Could always use those as references for painting the minis. The minis are all unpainted from what I'm seeing here. But those are neat little cards. All right, so we're getting to the minis. There's a lot of minis in here. Here's the first one I just kind of picked up, and they do have bases that some of them are attached, some of them aren't. I know the guy that I bought the boxes from said that he started to put some of them together. He hadn't even opened the games. You know, like I said, these are all still wrapped. So everything's pretty much brand new. He started, he was going to paint up the minis and he never really got to it. So this looks like some sort of a dinosaur folk. At first I thought it was an ogre, but it's kind of has like a stegosaurus line of scales with some tusks. So it's pretty cool because actually if you wanted a homebrew monster based off this, it would be a large monster. The base would be large for D&D, but that's also really cool because you can always use big monsters, especially now that my campaign, my players are getting to be like level 4. They're going to be pushing level 5. I'm going to really start looking for some bigger, harder hitting monsters. And I'd really like to homebrew stuff. I homebrew my whole campaign as far as it's you know, the entire storyline, the entire land that it takes place in is not from anything else in D&D. It's all stuff I created myself. So I like to have some stuff I can homebrew with monsters too. And this is a really nice sculpt. Again, it's a kind of cartoony, but I think it works pretty well. So we'll put him in here in the dice tray. We've got another one that looks like, again, kind of a dinosaur. Almost looks like a little bit of a raptor that's with a mace tied to its tail. And it's being ridden by some sort of a little monster. He's got got a helmet on, but he has a kobold kind of outline to him. And I think he could definitely pass as a kobold. And he's riding this thing, which is pretty cool too. Again, on a large base, which I really like. He told me that these things were primed already, or that they came kind of pre-primed to paint. To be honest with you, I'll probably re-prime them anyway, especially if I have to do any cleanup and stuff. Even when you have pre-primed minis, it's always a great tip to prime them again right before you paint, because a lot of times if you have to do cleanup, carve off mold lines or any spots where there was anything attached to pieces, any of the spots that you carve or sand a little bit aren't going to be primed anymore. And so I always give it one good coat of primer myself, just in case. Even with like the minis that you buy directly from the store that say right on them, primed, ready to go, like the Marvelous minis and things like that, I still like to prime just in case. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Here it looks like this is a bear. It's pretty large and it's on a large base as well. It's got a big screaming mouth. Again, it's a little cartoony, anime-ish, but you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I could probably still use it. It's got a chain. Looks like it's been shackled and it broke free of its shackles. Looks like it's kind of attacking. I could definitely utilize this still. Again, that's 3 large minis right off the bat. And it's kind of a neat one. I'll attach some pictures in here of a couple of them together. It will kind of separate some pictures as we go through. This is great because this is just landscaping, but you can always use battle map landscape pieces. This looks like I think in the game it's a spawn point where the DM or whoever's running this game can kind of bring monsters through onto the board. But it's got kind of a little dragon type skull on the top, and it has it's just a little kind of obelisk, which is really nice. It's got great texture to it, and there's a number of them here. I've got 1, 2, here's a third one that's a little bit different. It's the same thing, but it looks more like a crystal with a skull on top. Another one of the obelisks. So that's 4. Plus, here's one that it looks like the guy that I got him from said that he painted one thing, and this looks like the one thing he got to paint. It's got a nice paint job on already, so he did a pretty good job. So he obviously knew what he was doing. So I'll keep this one too and utilize it. he painted it up kind of like it had, almost looks like it's got magma inside, which is pretty cool. So we'll keep that too. So you got 5 little obelisks with skulls on top that you could really use to set the mood and to build an encounter on your Dungeon Master table, which is neat. Oh, and here's a few other things it looks like he started to paint, at least start to prime. These are the little animals. They almost look kind of like they're supposed to be like a dinosaur figure. They are on a small base, and they would be small in size. And they actually, I think he's got them painted red, almost like kobolds. And I think they would pass really great as kobolds. I actually like them better than the standard kobold minis that you see, because these have got a little more meat to them. Kobolds tend to look kind of skinny and scrawny, and he did a good job with the ones he painted. And I'm going to use these as kobolds. I've got a little kobold army going on now. That's 3 of them. Let's see if we find any others as we go through here. There's a lot of stuff in here. This looks like another one, a different sculpt. We've got 3 with spears. This one has a little sword. He's not painted. Little sword and a shield. His base is also not glued on yet, but we can add him there. Here's another spearman, kobold. Another spearman, another spearman, another one. So all in all, total, I've got, looks like 12 kobolds. So I just basically got myself a free kobold army. I mean, it wasn't completely free. I paid for the 3 boxes, but they were nothing. I mean, just from what I've got here, the minis are all paid for from what I bought, and I still have 2 whole boxes of minis. And I'm not done here yet either. Here we have another one of those kind of dinosaur, stegosaurus, ogre kind of troll things on a large base. So that's my 4th large thing. And also, and this was one of the things I really liked when I opened the box just a second ago and saw, I got a dragon on a large base. So I would say you could probably pass this as like a young dragon. It's a little bit smaller than some of the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition mini dragons, but not much. It is on a large base, so you could pass it as like a young or adolescent dragon. It's got a real kind of vicious look on its face. It's kind of crawling up over a little obelisk. Really cool pose. Great detail. This doesn't look as cartoonish as some of the other sculpts. So I'm definitely going to use this and definitely make it a chromatic dragon because it has kind of an evilish feel to it, which I like. Oh, more kobolds. So I guess my 12 kobolds weren't the end. I've got more here. I've got a couple little lizard dog things. They look like they're supposed to be maybe kobold dogs, or a wolf lizard kind of creature, which is really cool. And they stand much smaller than the kobolds do. So I'm going to place them in here too. What I'm going to do is move this because I got a lot more minis here than I thought I was going to. This is really exciting. I went from brand new to minis. My first episode, I think you guys saw my first episode of this show. I painted up some DC miniatures that I found on sale, and those are the first minis in my collection. I've always just used kind of Theater of the Mind while dungeon mastering, and now I wanted to kind of expand it. And now I've got a whole lot of minis. I'm going to be painting for quite some time. A lot of these kind of kobold dog things. I'll have to make something up, either check some of the Dungeons and Dragons information. If you guys think that there's something that might match to it that you can think of, drop it in the comments. I'd like to see it. All right, so all in all, it looks like I ended up with, there's some kobolds here in a different stance. There's some kobolds that have little daggers and helmets on them, and there's some kobolds that have like a whip, like a thorn whip, which is really cool as well. And there's still more kobolds. This is like a kobold bonanza here. That's not one. Make sure that I'm kind of out of them. This is like a kobold wizard, which is pretty cool. Another kobold wizard. A couple like undead kobolds, it looks like. They're kind of wrapped up like mummies. I got 3 of those. And then there's 2 just sort of like dinosaur creatures. I don't think they'd be more of a monster than anything else. All right, so that's all the kobolds, I think, finally. So I ended up with 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 28 kobolds, plus 29 the kobold riding the lizard mount, or the kind of like velociraptor mount. So that's a lot of kobolds. 26 kobolds in all. I have a whole kobold army. I could challenge my players just in an entire session where all they do is fight kobolds, and never run out of kobold minis. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, I really like the sculpt there. So now they had some of the player minis that they came with. This one looks kind of like a paladin. Could be a dragonborn. He's got a long sword, a big flowing cape. The actual pose of this mini is really cool. I like it a lot. It is a little bit hefty and kind of anime-ish for my taste, but you know, some of my players may like it, and I never know, in future campaigns or games that I might run, I can put it on the table and see if a character likes the style, you know. And I'm not real picky about mixing the styles, especially because size-wise, they're really not too far off. He's a little bit bigger than a thug or a human paladin that I pulled off of my minis, but to be honest, I think I would still allow it. I mean, he's not taking anything more than a mini base, or a medium-sized base, and he would still take pretty much the same amount of space on a board. So if somebody liked this, especially as a dragonborn, it does have a little bit more heft to it. So that's a pretty cool player character. I have an elf archer, female elf archer, with kind of long flowing hair. Again, very anime style. Not really my style, but a lot of people do like it. And again, I'd rather have a character happy with the mini they're using than anything else. It gives you options, is my thought. This one's supposed to be a druid, I believe. It's got kind of like could also pass as a barbarian. It's got a pelt as a head covering. It looks like a bear, or like a cougar or a lion pelt that it's got up over its face. It's got a beard. It's a humanoid person, and it has a staff. So it could go as a druid or possibly like a barbarian, the way that it's dressed. I have a little female sorcerer or wizard with a staff, wearing a little hat and a dress. Again, very anime looking, but for player characters, like I said, I'm gonna go with that. Looks like the guy I bought this from has started to take this one off a little bit to paint. This, I believe, is supposed to be a fighter or a barbarian. He's got a great axe, and it's a male humanoid. Hair's covering the ears, so it could really go either way between, you know, elf or half elf or human. This is another female sorcerer. Could be a sorcerer, could be wizard, could be warlock. It's a magic user of some type. And she has a really cool staff that's got kind of like a dragon's hand or paw with talons kind of wrapping around this orb that I think could be painted up pretty cool. And again, the sculpt is really good. Like I said, the style, the anime cartoonish style is not really my favorite, but the sculpts are really well detailed, and the poses are all cool. So, you know, just because it's not necessarily my style, it's a heck of a find, and I'm going to use a number of these in game, pretty much all of them. You know, I had, like I said, 26 kobolds. That's 31, 32, 33, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8, 9. So right now I'm at 49 minis, all just in one of the 3 boxes. Here's another like little lizard miniature, and it looks like it's crying over like a dead miniature or like a dead lizard of its own. So it's almost like it's like a baby lizard or a baby dinosaur, and it's over a dead one of its, maybe a brother or sister. So that's kind of a cool thing that you could play, especially playing into role play. This is another player character from the game. And it looks like this is a, this could pass as a tiefling. It's a little humanoid with horns. There's not a tail, but I mean, if you're going to be picky, I've seen tail. I know tieflings all have tails, which is one of the things I like about them. But, you know, could be tucked inside his or her pants. It's tough to see if it's a boy or a girl, but it has pointed ears. It has little horns like a tiefling, and it looks maybe like a rogue, or it's got 2 daggers. One's in its mouth and one's in a hand. So that would be kind of a cool little, and it's kind of down in a football pose, which is pretty neat. This is a fighter or a paladin. Looks like a human male. Has a really cool shield and a nice long sword. Some pretty cool armor. Again, a little bit, you know, it's the anime style, but it's really neat, and I like it a lot. That one actually is one of my favorite sculpts. I take that back. This probably was my favorite sculpt. This is a dwarf, and it's really cool. He's got a nice, huge, bushy beard, very Viking kind of looking helmet. He's got a nice shield, and he's got a hand axe or a double-bladed battle axe in his hand. And I think that he definitely would work well in a campaign. Little baby flying dragon. Really small for D&D, but you know what? It could be utilized as like a fairy dragon or some sort of a familiar that, you know, could be incorporate, you know, basically taking a physical aspect of like a little dragon. That would be utilized pretty well. Another one of these sculpts I showed earlier of the baby kind of lizard or dragon crying over what looks like a dead brother or sister or something. It's another of its kind. Another one of those little dragonish, what I'm going to use is like a familiar dragon. Two terrain or set pieces. They look like stones that have been carved to look like dragon mouths, which is really neat. You could use these at the beginning, like an opening of a dungeon, or you know, maybe paint the inside a little bit. It looks like the tongues are almost crystals, so these could be really cool pieces in an encounter. And then the rest of these are just extra accessories. I've got a mimic. Looks like a chest with teeth and a little tongue. Definite mimic. I got a regular treasure chest. Another mimic. It looks like in total I've got 2 mimics, and I've got 4 regular treasure chests, which you always need in encounters and especially in dungeons. Always use treasure chests. That's it for the minis. In total, I ended up with 65 minis just in this one box. As you've been tracking the video, you'll see that I inserted a number of pictures of some of these minis as we went through. But that's a lot of minis. And like I said, I still have 2 more full boxes like this. If they're anything like this, I could end up with 150 minis easily, just from this one Craigslist haul. And it was not that much money, I'm going to be honest with you. I know for a fact, after looking up the retail price on these boxes, I paid less for all 3 boxes than I would for 1 box new. And I got all these, 65 minis right here. This would just be worth what I paid. And I still have 2 boxes full of stuff that I have to go through. So really cool haul. Again, I'm not sure if I will necessarily play the game of, Super Dungeon Explorer. I'm more interested in the mini piece of it. But there's the top of the box. Like I said, I think it came out about 6 years ago. So I'm not super interested in playing the game itself. I did look up the rules a little bit. It seems kind of complex. But these are 65 miniatures. They're definitely going to make their way into my games and into my encounters for my players when I'm doing campaigns. And I may even paint up a few and use them even for player characters for myself. So I'm pretty excited, especially about the 26-piece kobold army. That really expanded some of my ideas on what I want to do. And so, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. Like I said, there's some pros and cons. The pros are the number of minis, as well as the sculpts are really done very, very well. The con really is that it's kind of in that cartoon anime style. But again, I understand that's just kind of the style of the game. So it's understandable. And even then, I'm going to use them anyway. I think that the kobolds themselves have a little bit of that style to them, but I actually like it more than the regular kobold style. So I think I'm definitely going to go with that. Paint them up red and brown a little bit and go with a kobold army. So I think that would be pretty cool. And I got a number of 5 large minis that can all be used as really big monsters. So I'm pretty excited about that too. Like, subscribe. If you can think of any other ideas I could use some of these for, again, I'll show you the pictures in this video. Drop some comments. I'm going to be looking to paint these up. Obviously, as you can see, I'm going to have my days pretty much taken up in painting for the next few weeks to get a lot of these painted. And some I'm sure I'll kind of wait until other projects come up as I get new stuff in. But I'm going to have my painting time really taken up by doing this. But drop me some comments as far as maybe what you think could be done with some of these miniatures and how they could best be utilized. And also, we did get the dungeon tiles, which are pretty cool. 12 by 12, which is always a good size, especially for large encounters. So you're not kind of piecing together smaller tiles. And I could use those for battle maps, basically, and lay them out for different things. So that's pretty cool, too. So here it is, 65 miniatures, all from Super Dungeon Explorer game. And I'm very happy with it. I'm glad I actually made the Craigslist deal and went and picked them up yesterday. And I can't wait to see the other 2 boxes because there's a lot of minis here and I'm really excited to get painted. All right, until next time, I'm Steve with Roll Again. And most importantly, keep playing and have fun.